Is the video on? Yeah. Okay.
I'll monitor.
Yep.
Counselor Colbert, I can understand. I can monitor.
Ready? Okay. I will now call this meeting to order, and the time is 10:05 a.m. The date is April 22, 2025. The meeting of the Grey Bruce OPP Detachment Board at Council Chambers in Georgian Bluffs. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge with respect the history and living culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the three fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. We recognize that these lands are the territories of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, collectively known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the keepers of this land. Georgian Bluffs is located on lands encompassed by treaties 45 and a half, 67, 72, 82, and 93. We reflect on our role as treaty people and the need to live in respect and peace and show respect for the First Peoples who inhabit these lands and waters. At this time, there are some members who have not yet been sworn in, and I would ask that we deal with that first to give them the opportunity to vote. Option of the agenda, that the agenda be approved as presented. Remover for Councillor Coburn. Member Coburn is moving that the agenda be presented as presented. Is there a seconder for the motion? Okay, it's Member Eric.
Close enough.
Sorry?
You're close enough, you're.
Good enough. Try mine. I seconded the motion. Is there any discussion arising from this motion, from this agenda? No hands, virtual or otherwise? Okay. Call the vote. Approved. Show of hands says the agenda is approved. All those opposed? None. Does any member have a declaration of pecuniary interest to declare? No hands being shown. I take that as no. With respect to the minutes of the last meeting, March 25th, 2025, recommended that the minutes of the inaugural Grey Bruce OPP Detachment Board meeting held on 25th of March, 2025 be adopted. Is there a mover for the motion?
Member McQueen.
Okay, motion's been moved by Councillor McQueen, Member McQueen in this case, I'm sorry. Is there a seconder for the motion? Okay, thank you. Member Nicol, Vice Chair Nicol has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion arising with respect to the minutes? Virtual or otherwise? No show of hands, so I take that as no discussion. Let's call for the vote. Do we recommend that the minutes of the last meeting be approved? All hands have gone up, virtual and here, so that no is no need to call. The minutes have been approved. Madam Clerk, do we go right to the recommendation to approve the two items? Do we need it read?
You need to read the recommendation, not the answer to correspondence.
Recommendation is where? Sorry? Recommended that to approve the two items of correspondence, that the correspondence contained herein be received for information. We all have the package that was sent. Is there a mover of this motion? Member Coburn has moved the motion. Is there a seconder? I'm sorry? Seconder? We'll take it virtually this time. It's been seconded by Member Soares. Thank you. Is there any discussion arising? Member Coburn.
Through you, Chair, perhaps to staff or police officers here, the critical points that are set out, and I apologize if any question I ask today is obtuse. I've never been on the police board before, but is this something that's pertinent to our police board? Is this a recommendation that we ought to be looking at in the future, or is this just meant for other types of police boards? I believe they're recommending a policy.
Question is being addressed to the police.
Member Coburn is referring to correspondence item 6.1, municipal police service board policy on critical points. So municipal police, it's for municipal police boards, not OPP detachment boards. Thank you for that clarification.
Any further points or comments? None? Let's call the vote. That the recommendation for, I guess it's item 6.1. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Through adoption of this motion, you're receiving both items of correspondence at the same time, simply for information. So you have a mover and a seconder. So
Yeah.
everyone is in favor of receiving the two items for information. And you can vote.
Thank you very much. Do we have a mover?
You have a mover and a seconder.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's take a vote. All in favor? All hands have gone up. Opposed, if any? None? Been approved. Move on to reports. That the 2024 year-end Grey Bruce Detachment Board report be received for information. Is there a mover for this motion? Councillor Wood? And is there a seconder for the motion?
Councillor Mackey, remember Mackey.
Member Mackey in this case. Member Wood. Apologize. Gotta get used to it. I'm deferring at this point. Well, defer to the detachment commander. Is there any discussion on this detachment commander? Yeah,
I was planning on presenting if that's okay.
you present it and then we'll see if there's a discussion.
I apologize to a few in the room that have already heard this, but mostly, I think most everyone is new faces, just a few that have already heard this. So this is our year-end report for 2024. So I'm going to start with the one with all the stats in it. There was two reports. So the one with the stats, I'll start with our motor vehicle collisions by type. For 2024, we had 9 fatal motor vehicle collisions, which is up from 2023. However, it is down from 2022. The good news is none of these were attributed to speed. However, we obviously don't want any fatalities. We know the impact that has on the communities, the families, and the first responders. So something we're continuing to look at. It does tell you the causes further on in this report. The next page shows, sorry, yes.
Please, go ahead.
Chair, I was wondering if through you, could we ask questions as we go along?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes, please do.
I was wondering then, what would you say has accounted for that significant increase in 2023?
2023 was down, and then it's up in 2024. So we did have that 1 year that was only 4, but 2022 was 11, then 4, and then back up to 9.
With apologies, I was looking at non-fatal and property damage only.
Yeah.
So from 2022 to 2023 was a significant jump in those, 148 and 115% increase. So I was just wondering if there was an explanation for that.
I can't say for sure what would cause the non-fatal and personal injury collisions and the property damage. You'll just see that it's more significant or more consistent this year, like those 2 years. So I'm not sure what the what happened in 2022 that saw a lower number. I'm not sure if that was still COVID when we had less people on the road, perhaps.
The property damage will be contributed to the winter we just went through, 2024. Significant NBCs related to weather.
And then 2023 that was also up. So yeah, I'm wondering if it might have been still COVID effect, 2022. Maybe people are just getting back more on, I'm not too sure. I think maybe we're back to normal by 2022, were we?
No.
I don't know.
Yeah, I will.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I would have thought, looking through the whole report, there was a spike in 22 to 23 right across the board. And I naturally attributed that to the fact that 2022 was still partially COVID numbers with there was much limitation at that point. So I assumed that 23 was definitely a big jump. Definitely 24 seemed to drop off a fair amount, but then a lot of people traveled in 23 once it was opened up again.
That's the only thing I can think of that would account for that. So yeah, on the next page, it does break down the causes for the fatal collisions. And you'll see the highest one is no seatbelt. 3 people were killed for not wearing a seatbelt. So that's obviously concerning because if they were wearing their seatbelt, they would have survived. So we continue to look at seatbelt enforcement. And as a side note, not part of this report, you may have heard about our provincial campaign this past weekend for the Easter weekend. We just got our results while we were sitting here, and Grey Bruce alone had 132 seatbelt charges this weekend, which is very high. So obviously people are still not getting the message, and we're out there still doing our job in enforcing the seatbelt laws, but that just shows you one weekend where there's a lot of people out and about traveling for family things, and 132 charges this weekend. So yeah. So yeah, going back to the report, it tells you the type of fatality collisions. So there was no ATV or motorized snow vehicle collisions that involved fatal collisions. Moving on to the next page, it speaks to our criminal and provincial statute charges laid, and you'll see they're pretty consistent from 2023, the numbers. Traffic-related charges, again, this speaks to the seatbelts. In 2024, we had 230 seatbelt offenses charged, which was up significantly from the previous years. And as you can tell, that's still obviously a problem, and we're continuing to do enforcement on that. Yes.
Back on the ATVs and the UTVs, Bruce County last year, we just allowed them on our roads. So we passed a bylaw to allow them. So it's nice to hear there was no significant accidents from them. And now that they're allowed, I don't know what the policy is in Grey County, but Bruce County, they are allowed on the Bruce County roads now.
There was no collisions with off-road vehicles at all, so that's good.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Through you, Chair, to the presenter, just in regards to ATVs, so these are charges related, would be charges related to them on highways and roads. Are there charges ever laid on trails for violations there?
So the trails would just be, and maybe you can speak more to this because you're a trail guy,
Yeah.
but they would be more policy, not having your documents.
So they'd be
Trespassing.
more trespass, like if you don't have a trail pass, then they can be charged with trespassing. We can't enforce someone to buy a trail pass, but we can trespass them from the trail. So bylaw is also involved in that.
So that falls under the purview of the OPP as well?
Yeah, so we do significant trail, like we have off-road vehicles ourselves, and we do significant trail patrols throughout the summer.
And so would speeding be part of your role?
Generally, they don't do speed enforcement on the trails. Most of the trails that are used in Bruce County anyways, that I'm aware of, speeding is not an issue because they're fairly windy, tight turning type trails. So you're looking for like alcohol infractions and helmets, like equipment infractions and trespassing.
Thank you.
Moving to the e-ticket warnings. I just wanted to draw attention to this. This may seem like a high number to people, 2,400 approximate e-ticket warnings. However, warnings are now documented on our system. So if someone is given a warning, they get what looks like a ticket, but it's not actually a ticket, but it's documented on our system. So if they get pulled over the next day, the next year, whatever, it shows that they had that warning. So they get a warning, but we do track those warnings. And also people that get a warning, they may have been charged with something else as well at the same time. You know, they might be speeding, so they get that speeding ticket, but they don't have their driver's license, so they get a warning on that. So just to draw your attention to that. Looking at violent crime, you'll see a significant increase in the offenses involving violence or threat of violence, which is obviously concerning. I would say this is attributed to more threats being reported, something that we'll continue to monitor and obviously investigate as they're reported.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I'm just wondering, because this data only goes back a couple of years, is that a significant increase? Because we're talking about fairly low numbers to begin with. So if we went back before COVID, for example, would we be seeing that more consistent with the 2022 numbers or the 23 and 24 numbers?
So I'd have to do some digging at that. I can't speak to that. I don't know. Just looking at the 3 years of data that I have in front of me, it is up from the past 2 years. The 2 years before were fairly consistent, and then that one is up a bit. So something we'll continue to monitor for sure. Property crime, you'll see there was a decrease in the arsons by 80-some%. That can be attributed to a couple of offenders that we had that were in the area that were responsible for most of those arsons, and them being arrested and caught for those offenses. So that's why there's the decline in the arsons there. Drug crime, you'll see that the only big one that I really noticed there is the trafficking has gone down a bit. However, it's consistent with 2022. And you'll see in my other report, the trafficking numbers kind of are up and down depending on how long the investigation takes, because those are very detailed and in-depth investigations. So you'll see those numbers kind of go up and down throughout the years.
Go ahead, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. Inspector, previously some of the drug and property crime was related to gang activity out of the Kitchener area. Can you just update the board on gang activity in the area?
So there's
in relation to property crime?
Yeah, we still see the people coming from the different cities. There's also Toronto connection as well. So we do still see them coming up into our area and are responsible for some of this and bringing the drugs into our communities. So yeah, that is still unfortunately a thing. And we're still, our street crime unit is still focused on that and doing those big investigations. So looking at the other crimes, federal statutes, you'll see there was a 300% increase there. So we had to do some digging to figure out why that was so high. And actually it is directly related to COVID. The fail to attend court charges were not being laid during the COVID years due to the backlog of court. So in 2024, we got back to laying those charges, and that's why the numbers are back to the pre-COVID numbers. And you'll see that number being more consistent now again. The next page speaks to the clearance rates, which are all fairly good clearance rates, other than you'll see property is rather low. It's just around 20%. Property crime is the hardest crime to prove, because usually there's no witnesses and it depending what kind of evidence there is there. So, and sometimes one offender is responsible for multiple crimes in different areas. So that's one that we continue to work on. You know, we count on cameras and things like that as well. So property crime is definitely the most difficult one for us to find the evidence for.
So more and more people getting cameras on their property, is that going to help?
Hopefully, yes, that's our hope. I've reported to past councils on the CanSafe program, where you can get your cameras registered with the OPP, and then the OPP can see this list of who all has cameras in a given area. We can't use your cameras without your permission, but it just gives us a quick access of who all has cameras. So we're hoping that that program continues to build and gives us more access to the cameras in the areas.
The quality, it's always the issue.
That depends on the person and what kind of camera they get. If you get the cheap camera that doesn't have a good picture, it's not really even worth it. You need a good camera that we can actually see the person or the vehicle. A lot of times the businesses, you know, your convenience stores, we just recently had a robbery in one of our municipalities, and we were able to charge the female after the fact because we got that really good still image of the suspect and then passed it out to our detachments and were able to determine who that person was. So having a good camera really does help.
So do you have any guidance on where cameras should be on premises to get the better picture, like, or, you know, your driveway, someone is coming in, maybe the front door?
Both are good. Yeah, both would be good. You know, front door, sometimes people come to the front door to see if anyone is home, right? So I know a lot of people have those doorbell cameras. They're usually pretty good quality. And then also your driveway, right? If they're just parking down the laneway to walk in and see what's going on. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So property, so I'm going to go back more to municipally. Is the OPP actually making recommendations to the municipalities to implement more like webcams and things like that? Do you make that recommendation? I've actually made it at our own council because I used to work for a company, we used to have them. And the police actually would come to us and say, do you have something because something occurred? And it just seems to me that it's relatively simple. It's not just tourism, it's not just awareness, but it's just truly can be a tool for you. So do you make a recommendation to municipalities to do that, or you just hope they do, or?
I don't know that we would recommend that they purchase cameras because that's a costly undertaking for municipality. Like we're not in the business of telling them to do that, but we would definitely love it if they did get them. It would help us. And when they asked me specifically, some municipalities have, I said, yes, it would definitely be beneficial to us. So if they do ask, I do say that. Moving on to the next page, just unfounded crimes are on the next page. I just want to explain what that is. Some people might not be aware of that. So unfounded crimes are crimes that are reported to the police and then are determined to not have occurred once we do the investigation. So it tells you what the stats are for unfounded. It doesn't really matter. It just tells you how many crimes we have to investigate that never actually happened.
That's a bigger question. We had to use an example.
Okay. So an example, maybe it's maybe someone reported a theft.
We came and got it.
And yeah, exactly. Right. Something like that. Or it could be something more like that's a very innocent one, right? They thought it was a theft. Maybe someone reports their vehicle was stolen. And maybe they crashed their car, right? And they had been drinking at the time. So then they reported their car was stolen. And then we determined that was unfounded. We would then have a different investigation we're looking at, but that would be an unfounded.
Or somebody's playing a joke on you and take your car.
Right, something like that. Yes. The next page speaks to public complaints. So it talks about conduct, policy, and service. So conduct of the officers, there was 13 in 2024, which is similar to 2022's number, and up slightly from 2023. Of note, none of these were anything significant, no suspensions or anything like that. They're all dealt with locally. So sometimes it's just, to an officer, careful your language when you're dealing with people or something simple like that. Nothing egregious.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, Inspector, can you just, for the benefit of the board, give us a quick overview of when a complaint is received by the OPP, what the process is as far as looking into that complaint?
Yeah, so we used to use OIPRD was the complaint agency. It's now LECA, the Law Enforcement Complaints Agency. That came in when CSPA came in, it changed. So people can come in right to the detachment themselves personally to just speak to a supervisor and deal with it informally, such as that. Just like, hey, I had this officer pulled me over and they were mean to me. They gave me a ticket, those kind of things. We do get that. So something like that, it's just, you just determine if there's anything to it. If it's something that maybe the officer said something they shouldn't have, maybe they weren't totally professional throughout the stop, you can go and speak to them about it, and that might be enough. If the person is adamant that they want that person investigated and dealt with, then they would file a complaint through LECA. And then LECA screens them in or out. And if they decide that it's worthy of investigation, it gets assigned to investigators. So that's our professional standards unit is assigned to investigate. Most of the incidents are dealt with under the local resolution, unless it's something very serious that can't be dealt with locally. So locally is what I just kind of explained, similar things where it's speak to the officers, maybe you sit the complainant down with the officers and it's talking about what happened and an apology if that's suitable. Things like that. If the officers or the complainant do not agree to the local resolution, then it goes to that formal investigation. And whatever happens there happens, whether it's deemed to be not substantiated, which is usually what happens, or it's substantiated and they find some kind of discipline. You're welcome. Any other questions on that? Okay. The next section speaks to our patrol hours, and I think this is really good news right here as the increase in all of our patrol hours. So our officers are out there being proactive. Cruiser patrols up significantly, as well as marine, ATV, and snowmobile patrol. Snowmobile patrol, probably because we actually had a winter where we could be out on snowmobiles, unlike previous winters. But all the rest, the numbers are really good. Bicycle patrols are even up. We did hold a local bicycle course, so we have more officers trained on bicycles, so that might be part of it as well. And then foot patrol is also up, and I know when I go to the councils, that's something that all the councils like to see is foot patrol, so it's good to see that that is also up.
Just a question on that. I remember years ago, an officer had to spend tons of time in the office doing book work, and then they were introducing laptops to the vehicles. Has that contributed to this being out on the road more?
I think that's very accurate. Yes, every officer has a tablet in their car where they can do all of their reports right there. They can dictate reports, so they can call a number and just say their report and it gets dictated for them. And we have printers in the car, so they can print off release documents if they arrest someone on the side of the road and it's something where they don't have to be held, they can print those documents off. So yes, essentially their cruiser is now their office. They come back to the office with prisoners that are being held, but a lot of their work they can do right in their car now.
Just, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just from my own edification, patrol at school, just wondering what that entails.
So it can look like different things. It can be an officer just sitting in their cruiser right by a school watching pedestrian traffic and vehicle traffic, or it can be out on foot at the school, just in the school area, school patrol area.
Go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you, Inspector, I needed to say thank you for the foot patrol hours being up. We've been one of the councils that continually talked about that, and also the marine hours, seeing them up for those of us that have inland lakes. It's always been a concern that there was lack of enforcement, and I know there's been work done in that regard. So thank you for identifying that and changing the numbers.
And I'll speak more to Marine in the other report, because the Marine program has done an amazing job the last couple of years in increasing their patrols.
And would you say that these foot patrols enhance the community's ability to get to know the officers and understand the officer and chat to the officer, and sometimes lead to good information from the community?
Absolutely. I tell our officers that when I meet all our new officers, I say, get out there on foot and talk to people. The majority of people like us. And, we sometimes only deal with the negatives, right? When we're arresting people, you don't always have that positive interaction. So I said, get out on foot and talk to people, because the majority of people like us and they want to see you out there. And people will stop and say hi. I did foot patrol in Wyerton, and I just went to go actually to the bank or something. And I did a little loop of downtown, and I had a domestic reported to me. Someone was like, hey, officer. So, we also get those kind of things reported to us when we're on foot patrol. So.
People on council commiserate that you hear more from people that might not like you than might.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because those are the most vocal people. Absolutely.
Through you, Chair, to our speaker, regarding the foot patrol, how do you determine where to do that each year? Do you have a schedule, or is it based on complaints or recommendations coming from a municipality? I'm just wondering how one gets that, or is it more haphazard than that?
So if we have a problem area, we can assign a focus patrol. For those not familiar with what our focus patrols are, it's if we get a problem area, maybe it's a traffic complaint, maybe it's property crime, whatever that may look like, we can assign a dedicated 2-week period, usually is what it starts as, dedicated patrol in that area. So officers are assigned that area specifically to do specific patrols on that property crime, traffic, whatever it may be. So that could be one of the ways it's assigned. Otherwise, officers are assigned a zone. And so each officer is in their zone, and it's up to them. If they have time to do foot patrol, they do foot patrol where they see the need, unless we have a directed need for those focus patrols.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. If I could just follow up on that, Inspector. Previously, when there was a community event, we would notify the OPP. Is that still something, a fall fair, for example, and then, officers would walk around the event? Is that something that, I guess, how will that continue now, the reporting back and forth? We have a larger board, and how do the local municipalities ask for those officers.
Absolutely. We love to know about those things. We have a very big patrol area, as you all know. So to make sure we know about them, if municipalities want to continue to tell us, that's great, because our officers will go out on foot as long as there's no priority calls that are preventing them from it, then they can go out on foot at those events. Absolutely.
Are there any questions from our virtual members? I haven't seen any, I've been watching for hands there. There's not. Go ahead. You have a question, Member Suggs? Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's so great to be here. Congratulations to Commander for her new position. I just wanted to confirm the exact page we are on, if that's okay. I had it, but I just scrolled and I missed it now. So is it 12? Are we on?
I
Yeah,
just
can you
finished
let me
page
know?
11. Moving on to page
11,
12.
okay. Okay, I was about to say, I think we're on page 12, but we're on 11. Great. That was my only question for right now, but it's really great seeing everybody.
Thank you.
So moving on to page 12, youth crime, so youth disposition. You'll see that number's really fallen off as well, really decreased in 2024. Again, we have certain offenders that take up more of our time, and as they age out of the young offender stream, then that number will fall down. So we had a couple of prolific offenders there that have aged out and are now considered adults, so that will be why you see that number lower for 2024. Moving on to page 13, mental health occurrences. I know this is something I've spoken to at all council meetings in the past and police service boards, but mental health calls continue to take up a lot of our time. You'll see our numbers down from 2023, but it's still up from 2022, and numbers are still very significant. So our mobile crisis response team has been very beneficial in dealing with these calls, and we did submit a grant and are waiting to hear back to see if we got approval for another MCERT worker, which would help us have an MCERT worker available for more hours of the day. Right now, it's from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m.
And some work from 10 to 10.
Yeah, so I guess 8 till 10 p.m. we have coverage if everyone's working, but obviously the need is there for beyond those hours because we know mental health crisis happens at all hours. And this just allows us to get those people the help they need when they need it and where they need it. And it gets us out of those hospitals, the emerge, and back out into the communities, because as we all know, mental health crisis is not a criminal matter, but we're the ones that are called and are often dealing with them. So.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Mental Health Act 578 occurrences. Can you define that more specifically? Are we talking about formed individuals, or what exactly comprises that?
So it depends on how the officers classify it on the occurrence. Mental Health Act is very broad. It's anything under the Mental Health Act. Some people break it down more. Like you'll see attempt or threat of suicide is 134. But so that's just the very broad mental health. So it could be anything under the Mental Health Act. They just didn't break it down into something more specific. It's the broad code of mental health occurrences.
It's just interesting that that one is such a significant number, and yet we don't have a lot of details on that. So I don't know if that can be broken down further, or if that would be of any value even.
The Mental Health Act is the master code for mental health occurrences. So you'll see like personal well-being check is 12. So those are different occurrences that had a mental health element to them. The Mental Health Act is a strict mental health occurrence. So any kind of mental health crisis that's not a threat of suicide or I guess that's pretty much all that's broken down. So it's more broad, maybe not an actual threat of suicide, but they're just not doing well. It's the umbrella code, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Is there any advocacy, Inspector, that could be done? I had the experience of sitting in emerge about a month ago, and there was 2 officers spent 8 hours watching someone that was waiting to be assessed. You know, I just thought to myself, this is a tremendous waste of OPP resources, you know, when they could be out on the road. Is there anything that can be done, you know, to try and speed up the assessment process in the hospital. I mean, they were just waiting, for a psychiatrist to see them, and, the individual ended up going back to Penetang after waiting 8 hours, but there was 2 officers tied up the entire day. I kind of felt bad for them, sitting there in outside of a bird room for that length of time.
And unfortunately, that's too common. Like, that is a common occurrence that will happen. Like I said, oftentimes we're tied up for long periods of time because, they're dealing with other medical emergencies that take priority over the mental health crisis. So, and it has to have 2 officers. A mental health call is a 2-officer call for service because you never know when they're going to change their behavior. So for officer safety and the person's safety, we always have 2 officers with that person. I know in the past, councils have asked me that same question, what can we do to advocate for? I know in previous grants, we've had letters of support from councils. So perhaps that's something we could do if we're not successful in this grant or we have another grant opportunity. Essentially, it comes down to the hospital and not having, there's not enough people working there either, right, to deal with all the things. They have to prioritize just like everywhere else. So we're kind of at their mercy.
If I could just add to that. So our MCERT program has dropped those hours significantly. Yes. So with our MCERT clinicians, we actually have calls where we don't even go into the hospital because they are professionals in that area of mental health, and they can, at the scene, de-escalate the person, provide different resources to them on site. And sometimes, like oftentimes, they don't even require going to the hospital. So, I mean, there's still the one-offs, and they're probably more often than what we would like, but there's still those times where we end up being in the hospital because perhaps the clinician can't de-escalate that person, they need to be medicated, what have you. So then, yeah, we do sometimes end up with significant hours at the hospital, but the biggest advocacy that we could do collectively as a group is to continue with the MCERT program and advocate for more clinicians to assist police with those types of calls.
Yeah. Do we have an agreement with the hospital through the OPP?
Yes, we do have a transfer of care protocol. So that's when we bring somebody in, for those that are not familiar with it, there's like a low, medium, and high risk assessment done on that person. So if it's perhaps it's someone who, they're just having a bad time, they called us because they finally got they were like, I'm going to call today and get some help. And they come willingly, there's no issues, there's no threat of violence. That would be considered a low risk. So between the hospital and the police, there's a document that they agree upon and say, yeah, we both agree it's a low risk. So they can both sign it. And then police are released from the hospital and the hospital accepts care of that person. If it's a medium or a high risk, then the police, high, we definitely have to stay the whole time until they're formed or released. Medium, it's again, decision made jointly between the hospital and the police. But ultimately the hospital has to just agree because we're leaving them with this person. And then obviously if there's issues that arise after we leave, we would come back. But this transfer of care protocol, it does help definitely with the timelines.
Do we have a good forum or process to work through issues and challenges with? Yes,
we have a good relationship with Bright Shores, which is the hospital that we deal with mostly. And actually our MCERT program is employed, our workers are employed by Bright Shores. So that also is helpful for that relationship piece.
Just Member Soros, virtual, had a question.
Thank you, Chair. I am encouraged to see that there is declining overdose numbers. I do apologize, I'm a bit under the weather, so thank you for your indulgence. I do see the concern that there is an ongoing, high volume of Mental Health Act calls that are occurring in rural areas like Southgate. And I am happy to hear that there is a co-responsive model in place with having mental health professionals go alongside police, if that's what I heard correctly. I was wondering if there is any further role the board can play in advocating for expanded mental health and addiction outreach, particularly where calls have youth and family impact. one of my reasoning for asking this is that unfortunately, we did have a situation last year that occurred on my street and someone did take their life, and that was very tough. The reasons surrounding that, I guess it's not that important in the sense that the context and all that, but is, we want to just be able to see how we can do whatever we can. So I was just wondering, how much is the co-response model in effect? And also just upstream preventative medical care, healthcare. What are we looking at right now in terms of the rural area to make sure that that is something that continues, and how can the board help with that?
So our MCERT program, they drive their own cars, and we go to the scene, make sure it's safe, and then they come to the scene. We have 2 full-time MCERT workers and 1 part-time who fills in for vacation and whatnot. So that's how we have Monday to Friday coverage, 8 till 10. Ideally, we would like to have 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week coverage. Nea also just recently got funding for their own MCERT worker. Sorry, not through the same program. I think theirs is through their health center, but they just got the funding, so they will also have a worker assigned to them. I'm not sure on the hours yet. I don't think they've started. They're starting in the next couple of weeks though, so that's also promising. But ultimately, we would like to have more funding to have more people working in that role. So perhaps that's something we can discuss at another meeting. If there's any ideas on how we can get more funding, I'd be open to that. Because it sounds like everyone's in support of that. I know it's something that when I go to council meetings as well, there's a lot of support for the mental health program.
Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is all under the umbrella of mental health occurrences. I'm just curious what triggers that. So for example, when they're impaired over 80, there were 3, and I'm just wondering what triggers that to be going from a regular impaired to being a mental health scenario? There must be some kind of.
Yeah, so perhaps that person, it depends on the situation. I can't speak to them specifically, but likely something, they're arrested for impaired and then they're in our custody and they say, I want to kill myself. Maybe they're going through something and that's why they're drinking. So that's where the mental health side comes into it. So we would get them the mental health help as well. Kind of do a co-investigation with the mental health side of things as well as the criminal charge.
I think Member Reynolds had a question. Virtual? Was there a question from?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yes, sorry. I just wanted to speak a little bit to this issue on the board. Thank you. I'm here as a community member, but I am the former team lead for the crisis team and MCERT at the hospital here. So we know that police and our services have worked really well together, I think, to try to advocate for more time and more pieces. And regarding this, it is such a wide range and big issue with so many layers of systemic reasons why we really don't have enough of those services. As part of the board, I would love to really think about advocating for not just expanded time, but even within the crisis team, they are only working until 8 p.m. as well. So overnight, 8 p.m. till 8 a.m., there was no crisis workers within the hospital emergency department either. And psychiatry on call is basically a phone call. So that's a big piece, I think, in the hospital area that can be improved. I think everyone, the police representatives there know how passionate I am about that MCERT program. Many communities have them running 24/7 or ride along in the cars, so there's lots of work. But I'm happy to ever be involved if there would be any other type of committee or group discussing this issue further.
Go ahead.
Just a quick comment too. I do not in this last month or so, but I do spend 1 day a week in Emerge for 4 hours a day. It's usually a Monday after a weekend. And I can attest to the fact that police officers are sometimes there with someone who is in crisis. And there may be 2 other people in the main waiting area, if that's where we can hold them, that are having some sort of a mental health crisis. And the crisis support team that's actually at the hospital is pretty good to be able to intervene when they can, to do all of that. But I do agree that the mobile crisis team plays a huge role in averting patients actually having to get to emerge in many cases.
Any further questions of Amanda?
So just one more piece to this, if you don't mind. So I think the other factor, and this is on a much bigger level, is that Owen Sound is the only Schedule 1 facility in all of Grey Bruce. And given the population changes and et cetera, the inpatient unit as well has never grown in beds. And there would be some requirements, or at least the population does give, to potentially have another Schedule 1 facility. And that, I think, would make a huge difference given the limited ability to be even admitting people that require it.
Any further discussion? That said, we can call a vote whether, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so just the last page of this one is just the, we kind of touched on the overdoses. So they are down significantly from 2023. However, you got to know that this is only ones that police are involved in. I mean, these are not ones that, where there's no police involvement. Usually there is police involvement, but sometimes friends can, do the Narcan and police are never called and we don't know about those. So these are only ones that are reported to police. The last page just speaks to victim services. Our numbers for referrals are pretty consistent over the years. It's a great service that we are able to use to support our victims of crime. So that page just speaks to that.
If I may, I'm interested in the percentage accepted for those referrals at about a quarter of the ones that have been offered. I think I likely know the answer to this question, having worked in mental health, community mental health myself, and knowing the population. But would you say that quarter, 25% acceptance rate is in line with what we would see across the province, or does it reflect any lack of appropriate community services that are available here?
So the acceptance is just to victim services, not to specific services that they can offer. So I don't know that it's the same everywhere. In the places I've worked, it's usually it is lower, the acceptance rate, because a lot of people are like, I don't need that, I'm good, I've got this. Because we offer it for break-in enters, property crimes as well, and then, fatal motor vehicle collisions. And sometimes people say, I don't need help, I've got my own resources. So it is lower. I would like to see it higher. But again, everyone has their own way of dealing with things and their own support mechanisms that they have. I do have the written report as well. I'm not sure if it was added in the agenda. Okay, so I'm just going to touch on that too, if that's okay. I'll go to page 4. I won't read my intro there. Page 4 is the crime. So just to touch on our crime unit, it talks about their stats for the year. I just wanted to highlight the new program that came out in 2024, the Detachment Abuse Issues Investigator Program. So we were assigned 2 in our detachment area due to the size and volume of our calls for service. And what they do is they review all intimate partner violence calls for service and ensure that they're properly investigated. They can help with interviews and whatnot as well. But it's a great new program to ensure that none of those cases kind of slip through the cracks. And I also wanted to bring to your attention that crime unit was busy with 2 homicide trials this past year. The one, it says in here that he pled guilty after 3 weeks of trial. And then the other one, it says that it was through the courts, but he was also recently just found guilty. So the crime unit is doing these big investigations, and then it takes a lot of their time. But here's 2 homicide investigations where the offender was found guilty, which is a really good news story. The community street crime unit, this is the one that does all your drug and property crime investigations, those lengthy investigations that I kind of spoke to in the previous report. I'm not going to get into the details on all of these. Everyone, I'm sure, has read it, but it just talks to the length of time these investigations take and the amount of value that they're getting out of these investigations in stolen property and drugs. And then just to touch on the very last one, this is one that went all the way out to British Columbia. So that's the far scope of this. And it's a rebinning of vehicles that was happening. So it wasn't just province-wide, it was reached out to British Columbia, and it ended up in approximately $2 million worth of high-end vehicles being recovered. So, and it started right here in our little Gravers street crime unit. So really good work being done by them. And the one before speaks about a clandestine lab being dismantled by the unit. It was actually not, it was in Walkerton, so not in our area, but they worked together, and you know those drugs were coming into our community as well. So, provincial liaison team, I just want to draw your attention to this program for anyone who's not aware of it. We do have one dedicated member at our detachment as well as our provincial team, and this team is available to all municipalities and our community members for any potential contentious issues. So municipalities can rely on them for, you know, those bylaw issues where someone's not conforming to bylaws and there's, you know, pushback. Our members can get involved and help be that liaison between the person and the municipality. Lots of times they're used for protests. If you have some sort of protest in your community, something they can get involved with and often make things go smoother. They don't pick sides, it's just liaising between the two sides. Moving on to our media officer on page 8. She does an exceptional job in her role. You can see the engagement she has. I want to draw your attention to the youth and policing program that we brought into Grey Bruce last year. It's the first time that the program had been in West Region in the OPP, and we had 2 youth hired. And it's aimed at supporting at-risk youth through mentorship with police officers. So we do a little hiring process and find these at-risk youth that would benefit from this program. It was very successful last year, and we're looking to get 4 this year. We submitted 4 names through the background phase. So really good chance for them to have that interaction with police and then to go out to the communities with the police and these members to interact with other youth. And recruiting, we're continuing with our local recruitment efforts, and we've seen multiple local candidates being hired recently. So that is a really good news story. Better chance of them staying in our area if they already have the ties to our community. The next page speaks to our auxiliary unit. We have a very dedicated auxiliary unit. You'll see them at different community events, and it just shows their hours. And this is donated time that they donate to the communities, being out there at community events, patrolling with officers, and a lot of them also have a job on the side. So we're very proud of our auxiliary unit. Also speaks to our traffic management unit on that page and what they've done. That's on top of our frontline constables who also do traffic enforcement. The Marine program, I do want to touch on this because this is something that I'm really proud of the efforts of our Marine program. It shows the numbers. It was in 2022, I believe that, 2023 that our detachment decided to do their own Marine program rather than partnering with neighboring ones. And you can see when we took it in-house, the number of charges and vessel checks and all the things that happened there. They took real pride in it. Our Marine officers are very dedicated and passionate about the program, and the results just speak for themselves. Unfortunately, we did have 3 water-related deaths in 2024, and they're explained there at the bottom of the page. But our officers were definitely out there and doing the enforcement. I'm not going to touch on the stats part because that's in the other report. So that is the end of my reports. I'm sorry that took longer than I expected, but if there's any further questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions? Let's start from the end. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Inspector Barfoot, in previous years, there has been requests from the OPP for enhancements for traffic in the summer. So our busy time is coming up, and I know we have the dedicated traffic unit now. Can you just speak to when our long weekends are coming about? Is there any increase in traffic supervision that will be conducted by the OPP? Thanks.
Yes, so I spoke to this in the past, the major event tool. So starting on the May 2-4 weekend, we start to bring in overtime members from outside of our detachment area to add more policing into our area due to the influx in the population. That is scored provincially, so it's not specifically for the municipalities. It's
so
just
not just Saddle Beach.
right. Yeah. Highway 6 and 10, right? It goes through the whole corridor. So if we're getting them in, Grey Highlands, it's going to stop them from, before they get up to North First Peninsula. That's the idea, right? We really concentrate on the Highway 6 and 10 corridor during those long weekends because that's where the majority of the traffic is coming from. But we do start increasing our number of officers working starting the May 2 bar weekend.
Great, thank you.
And through you, Chair, I'm super happy to hear and see all of the data. I'm happy there's a focus on data and evidence so that we can make the right decisions. I'm curious, in using the system that you have right now, can you mine data for individual municipalities? So should my council members ask me, how many hours did OPP spend on foot patrol last year for Georgian Bluffs? Do you have the ability to provide that information?
We do have that. With the new one detachment board, we stopped breaking it down by municipality because it's the one detachment board reporting structure now. But if a municipality was wanting specific data for their municipality, we could do that. Just the direction of under the CSPA was more the one detachment, which is why we presented as a whole detachment area.
Thank you.
My apologies. So I was following along through the year-end report. But the last section where you're speaking to the Marine and auxiliary, was that included in our package?
I thought Brittany said it was. I asked her, but maybe she misunderstood. Okay, so maybe I could get that sent to them after the fact. Sorry, that was the second one. This is the old style where we used to do pictures and nice narratives. But under the Community Safety and Policing Act, they wanted it more structured so every detachment in Ontario presents the stats one. So for 2024, I still did the year-end report with a narrative for each of the units.
Okay.
So I can get them to forward that on. My apologies, I thought it was in the package.
No, sorry, I thought that was just I'd missed something. So
Yes,
thank you.
I will get that forward on.
Sorry, so the narrative won't be forthcoming at future meetings? Because it's always been great. I mean, that was always a lot of discussion. That was nice information. Can we request it, Inspector?
That's something that we can definitely talk about.
Any further questions of Matt Harper? Virtual or anybody sitting here? Time to call a vote. And the motion is whether to accept the report as presented. All in favor? All hands are up. Opposed, if any? None. Motion's passed. Was there a seconder? I should have asked. Yes. There was. Okay, thank you very much. Now, which item are we on now?
7.2.
7.2, the verbal report by Commander Barfoot, Provincial Offences Court update. Go ahead.
Again, this is just something I wanted to bring to the board's attention. At the end of January, the Crown Attorney for Grey County reached out to let us know that they were withdrawing a substantial number of Provincial Offence Act charges. So Grey County Courthouse is where even Bruce County goes to, except for Saugeen goes to Walkerton Courthouse. So it was over 100 charges that were withdrawn, just blanket. And I'm just going to kind of touch on some of them. This is a list. We had it broken down on all the charges. So some of them were pretty significant. One fellow had 12 PONs. Most significant was no insurance. There's a lot of commercial motor vehicle offenses. There was numerous stunt driving charges, a lot of them on Highway 6, which we all know was a problem area that the community was really focused on. There were some careless driving charges withdrawn. Here's one where a Class G1 license holder was driving without another driver, and an hour before had been charged by someone for the same offense. Here's one where an officer, this person actually came to the scene to pick up someone who is suspended driver, and this person arrived at the scene and accelerated off at a high rate of speed, like kicking up gravel at the officer who was standing right there. Which is a stunt, like they basically squealed their tires, took off, which is a stunt. So they were charged with that. Another one here where this person was driving with no insurance, and was suspended, and had been charged for speeding 3 hours prior to that by another officer. So yeah, I just want to touch on a few of them. Again, significant charges. I reached out to the Crown Attorney to ask if it was something like our officers weren't doing a detailed enough brief or what the problem was, and he said no, it was 100% staffing. They just didn't have someone that could man it. Obviously, you heard my previous report, there were some homicide trials happening, and it's the same Crowns that do the Part 3 matters and the homicide criminal charges. So he said we had to prioritize the criminal, which I get. So that was the end of January. Luckily, by February 10th, they had a new paralegal they were able to hire out of Goderich, and he started on February 10th. So we have had no issues since that time. And I'm hopeful that this continues to go that way, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention because these are significant charges. They're Part 3 matters, so they're usually the more significant charges. You know, you're racing, you're stunt driving, careless driving. If there's more to the careless and they decide to go by Part 3, no insurance, drive suspend, those kind of things. So again, just something I wanted to bring to the board's attention.
I do have a question, if I may ask. Were the reasons given by the court that there was no reasonable prospect of conviction, or was it they timed out?
No, it was none of that. Some of these had just happened in December. Some of them as recently as January. So there was not a time matter. It wasn't. I know that they have been backlogged since COVID, trying to catch up, but some of these were very recent. They simply didn't have anyone to go to court that day and asked for them to be put over to another day.
They asked it to be withdrawn?
They were all just blanket withdrawn, the whole list.
But what reason was given by the court?
To us, they said they didn't.
No, to the court, for the reason with they're being withdrawn.
I don't know what they said to the court.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I asked.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
This is ridiculous in my mind that, you know, these charges, especially recent ones, would be withdrawn. I mean, I can understand the frustration with our police services when, you know, you go to all the work to try to keep people safe, and then the courts are just withdrawn. So I don't know, Mr. Chair, what the answer is. You probably are more well-versed than I am, but I'm certainly concerned that the Crown would take it upon themselves just because of the lack of staffing on one day to withdraw all these charges, so.
Well, that's what I was getting at too. What reason on the record was given for the charge to be withdrawn? I mean, if the charge was laid and the charge was perfected, then in effect, the only person who can withdraw it is the presiding judicial officer. A reason has to be given on the record, and that's where I was going with it.
So my understanding is they just asked for all matters to be withdrawn. I don't know if they said it was due to no one being there to deal with them. I'm not sure. But in speaking, I requested a meeting with our Crown Attorney's office. Our traffic manager from London came up as well for that meeting. And he apologized. He said, I know it's horrible that we had to do this. And he said, there's nothing that your officers did wrong. It was simply we didn't have, because I said, why couldn't you just had someone put them over for another week if you knew you were hiring someone? He said, it takes time to go through each matter and put it over, whereas they can just blanket withdraw everything and it doesn't take any time. That's the explanation. So, you know, we wanted to make sure officers knew that we were taking this seriously so they weren't frustrated and you know, and knowing that, go there, do your job, because we are making sure that this doesn't happen again.
Now, I think there's, I'm going to deal with the virtual one first. One of our virtual members had a question. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is there a POA board at the municipal level? That's more of a question that I don't know, and I think it should, if there isn't, there should be, and it should be raised there. And then I would urge each council member to bring it back to their council table as well, because I think that is, as Member Mackey just said, that is an unfortunate circumstance. Like, provincial offences court is there for a reason, and it should absolutely be enforced. And I'm gobsmacked, for lack of another word.
I follow it. No, it just plays into my question. There's usually a reason given by the court for the charge to be withdrawn. They just can't throw it in the air. I'm telling you that. So it has to be on the record. A reasonable prospect of conviction, it's timing out. something. But I agree with you, put it over. But it wasn't probed any further, it would make a difference knowing why it was withdrawn on the record.
I don't know what they said on the record, just what he told me is why it happened.
Not getting down to the root of it, unfortunately. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'm curious, do we have any estimate as to the amount of time lost as a result of this? Or is it 3 hours each, or like there's a lot of OPP time that is just.
So no officers went to court for these matters.
Right, but there would have been investigations.
Oh, yeah, that's what you mean, yes.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah,
curious.
there was definitely significant time put in, for sure, yeah. Mhm.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, if I heard you correctly, and your background experience with the courts, that an officer needs to consent to these charges to be withdrawn, or can the Crown unilaterally do this without your consent? How does that work? Like, do you have any recourse as police officers to say, we're not agreeable to this?
We didn't find out about this till after they'd all been withdrawn. We got an email saying it.
You don't have any.
It's the same with criminal charges, unfortunately. Oftentimes we're told that we're not proceeding with this. Sometimes they liaise with us and.
Or put another way, don't bother sending your officer to court. We are withdrawing the charges. That's what you heard. So as a result of that, that becomes a statistic that you were told, for whatever reason, the charge is withdrawn. But to answer the vice chair's question, I'm not being questioned here, the court has to have a reason to withdraw, and the Crown attorney is the one who puts it on the record. I'm asking the court to withdraw the charge for the following reason. She doesn't have the answer. It's just don't
Because
bother.
they don't have to tell her, effectively.
Well, that's between
There is
them.
no accountability to the police that go to the work to do their jobs and then find out and undermine them. And all that's going to do is undermine the police officer's commitment to do this. What's the point of charging these people? They're just going to let them walk away anyway. Now, I'm glad to hear, having said that the issue's been addressed with the paralegal and that you feel now the resources are there, that this isn't going to be repeated. But I'm sure the public would be incensed if this became known widespread that this was going on, and maybe they will now.
Well, that was the whole point, Mr. Vice Chair. What if the public asks a question, why were they withdrawn? The police don't have an answer. We don't have an answer.
We have the answer. What the Crown told us is that they didn't have the time to process them and that there was no issue with our police work. That's what was told to us.
Go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
As a board member, what do you recommend we do? Shy of accepting your report on what's happened here, what powers, and I'm not sure with this new board, do we have to voice our opinion or talk to who we should be talking to? Because I would want to make sure that this is not going to happen again and voice my opinion. Now, shy of my MPP or my council or this board, what can we do?
So I don't know if that's something that a letter could be written if the board wanted to do that. Like I said, I had that meeting. I brought my traffic manager with me to that meeting because we wanted to address these concerns and let them know that we were not happy with this and, not acceptable. He was very apologetic and said, we put that remedy in place, this new paralegal. He doesn't see it being an issue moving forward because this paralegal, this is all he's going to do is the Part 3 matters.
Yeah, but this could happen again. There hasn't been a remedy put in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. This could be on the opinion of the one person that this could happen again. If the paralegal doesn't show up to work one day or 2 days, bang, they could throw the exact same, like, is there a recommendation that this board can give to somebody that this doesn't happen again? Like, shy of just listening to you, we should be able to do something.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, could you do an official letter to each municipality, just because again, would not have known about this until you gave this verbal report. This is something that seems to me should be at a council level so that we can obviously voice our displeasure with any bodies as well to kind of add to you to give it a little bit more leverage. So I'd like to see some kind of an official notice come to the municipalities to say that this has transpired.
Madam Clerk?
Member Colbert, please go.
I wondered, I agree, and I'm happy to hear a motion and second it to that regard, if that's possible. I wonder too if this is something the county, and I don't sit at the county council table, but I do wonder if this is something that both counties should be included as well, the county councils.
Mr. Chair, would it be more effective that the letter is addressed to the ministry and copies are sent to all of the municipalities and counties and so on to make our concerns known and ask them for a response so that, as has been pointed out, we want assurance this isn't going to be repetition. I mean, it's the ministry ultimately that control the Crown's decisions and this behavior, isn't it?
Madam Clerk, go ahead.
Thank you. I would suggest, as the next course of action for the board, is providing a notice of motion, essentially to communicate the board's, what do I want to use? Maybe displeasure, thank you, with this process, and advocating for resources to ensure that this doesn't happen again, per se. And that motion can be circulated to all of the involved parties, being the counties, being your local MP representatives, and whomever else Commander Bartlett would suggest. We'd be happy to take that direction back and draft a motion for consideration at the next board meeting.
And I'm good with doing such as that, because I believe the court systems or whoever made this decision has to know that the whole community is ticked off about what happened in this case. And for us to just sit back and do nothing means they're only hearing from yourselves, and that's it. They'll, it wasn't a big recourse or any happened to them. But if a community speaks, and that's what we're doing here, so I'm not real good at putting something together that should be together. So it should be through the commander and yourself or the chair to put something together from this board. And the direction we could give from this board is giving that direction of the 3 or 4 of us to put a letter together to get this out. So is that the direction we want to give, is to allow 3 or 4 people to come up with a letter and response?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I agree with Member Kirkland that we can't just let this lie, and that and I do agree with the Vice Chair that probably a letter going to the Attorney General office is where it needs to go. I don't think our individual councils have any authority to. This should be the authority of the board, because it is a police-related matter, in my opinion, and it might be the first letter that the chair signs on behalf of the new board after working with our senior staff on how to address this, with some assurances that, well, if it's been remedied, that's great, but assurances that it's not going to happen again, because I completely agree. If this word got out that stunt drivers, who we've been trying to crack down on for a number of years, if word got out that the court's just throwing those charges out, it wouldn't go over very well, and people need to hear that. So I would second a motion from my colleague.
Yeah, I'm saying that I happen to agree with the member that it should go to the Attorney General, because the Attorney General governs the courts. And they'll take a look at it, I would hope.
Exactly.
And I agree with all of that as well. I would just add that this is not the first time this has happened, because we saw this happen in mass during COVID as well with the backlog, which perhaps that was a reasonable excuse. I do see that as problematic as well. They need to be prepared for those situations and not let everyone have a pass.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, and I don't wish to stifle conversations, just procedurally, Mayor Member Kirkland moved a motion to provide that direction. That was then seconded by Mayor Mackey.
Yes.
So if the board is in agreement, then we'd be happy to take that direction.
And is the board in agreement with that motion? All hands went up. Opposed, if any? None. Oh, Were you opposed to? No, I saw a virtual hand. Go ahead, sir.
Quick
No,
question.
no, it was for fourth. Sorry, it was just slow coming down.
Okay. Go ahead.
Just a quick comment. Yeah, I remember Coburn said, and I remember being on our local police services boards where there was a backlog with COVID, but then they went to Zoom type trials and stuff, or virtual trials, which was, I think, did or tried to help speed up, which I think we're still in. Are we still in that virtual, that they could do that so that it removed a lot more reasons to throw it out because it couldn't be there. I remember one thing was interpreters, if that was the case. But I remember going back to last year, roughly around our last local police services board meetings, saying that I remember something about this being said that they're just not getting to those charges because they're backlogging. And so my question for you, Mr. Chair, was, has this happened previous to this 100 charges being thrown out more recent, like in the past year? Like obviously this is just recent. Is this an occurrence that's been happening in the past because of the numbers? I guess maybe you do or do not know. I don't know.
I don't know if recently these substantial numbers, there are some that are withdrawn here and there, but not to this significant number.
Because there's a time frame. I think going back to, there is some kind of a time frame that was sort of talked about. It's if it's been in the system for 2 or 3 years, they get thrown out too. You said this is in January, so
I'm looking like there's the most recent one was January 8th. There's the whole first page is 2024. The second page is, I think it's all maybe one 2023. The rest are 2024. There is one from 2020, so that one's dated. And then the last page is all 2023. The rest are all 2024.
So the Crown Attorney makes this case to the judge, and then the judge approved it. Is that how that works?
That's how it works. The Crown Attorney, if I may speak to it, simply I'm asking myself.
Yeah.
The Crown Attorney has to ask the court to withdraw the charge and has to give a reason. Crown Attorney just can't automatically say, okay, I don't want to see it.
It has to get approval from the higher up.
They just
the judge,
from the
right?
higher up. The judge who looks at it and says, no, here's no reasonable prospect of conviction or something, it's timed out.
It's 3 years and it's, yeah.
Well, a year and a half and it's dead because it's Ontario court by the sounds of it. So that's.
Is it Ontario court or is it more like POA?
POA, it'll go to Ontario court, not Superior.
I don't know, I realize it's provincial, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Being that we gave direction, do you need a motion in writing or are you okay with hearing the direction from the board and to come up with, I'm trying to jot down some things here, but I would rather the professionals write up the stuff than my
We'll work.
farmer equal.
We'll work with Commander Barfoot to draft them.
Okay, so I believe we've gave direction and clear out what we want to see for the outcome. Okay, thanks.
Thank you all for your support.
Is there a motion missing here?
Just a point of order, since this is verbal, well, let's get somehow into the minutes of, or than just the verbal, like, will it get captured as the words that were spoken or how?
Thank you. There's no motion. Okay. We're moving on to 7.3. Okay. That's the report GB OPP 2025 02 be received for information. Is remover of recommendation. Member Wood, is there a second? Thank you. Okay, is there any discussion on this? I'm sorry.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
So we're just approving the information report here brought forward by staff as to the actual draft procedure bylaw. We'll have more detailed conversation about that under bylaws.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're happy to facilitate the discussion at either point. If there's questions regarding the procedure bylaw, we're happy to address them now. So yeah, feel free.
I think it can wait until when we deal with the bylaws specifically.
Okay. Can we move on?
Just a call of the vote, please.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed, if any? All in favor? It's passed. Let's move on to 7.4, policy manual. That the report GBOPP 2025-03 be received for information. Is there a mover? Councillor Coburn? Member. Is there a seconder of the motion?
Member Kirkland?
Member Kirkland, thank you. Any discussion with respect to the policy manual? All ready? Any from the virtual members? None?
Member Martin has her.
I'm sorry?
Member Martin.
Member Martin?
Sorry, yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My question through you is to the clerk. I had written in a question and it hasn't been responded to yet, and so I just thought I'd bring it up here. The support that Georgian Bluffs is providing to the board, is that going to be on a rotating basis? Like, will another member municipality be giving that support next year and then so on? Or is it always going to be Georgian Bluffs? And I'm sort of asking because it talked about remuneration in the policy, and as a public member, I'm not sure where that remuneration form or expense form will go to, if it goes to the member municipality that I'm representing, or if it goes to Georgian Bluffs. And I just wanted some clarity around it. And that was it. That was my question.
Thank you for the question, Member Martin, and through you, Mr. Chair. So I guess just to give a brief overview, and then I'll address Member Martin's questions. The policy manual that you have in front of you today is essentially just establishing some foundational points for this board to commence their normal business. We will be adding to or amending or deleting from this policy manual as we move forward as a board. So this just establishes some foundational pieces to get us going. Through the proposal and through the council enactment process, literally approving of this board, Georgian Bluffs has taken full administrative kind of, I don't want to use the word burden, but full administrative responsibility of this board, and that is not projected to change at any point. This board does contribute costs for a percentage of an FTE through the Georgian Bluffs staff complement to provide the administrative support that's required at the board level. You will see that come forward at your next meeting through the adoption of your first budget. But at this time, it is solely a Georgian Bluffs administrative responsibility, and it is not expected to change. However, in the event that, however many years down the road, the board does wish to make a change, or the county wishes to make a change, or whatever that may be, the policies and procedures that are enacted at this board level may always be amended, deleted, or replaced. So while we are proposing that the remuneration policy mimic that of Georgian Bluffs, simply by virtue of us providing administrative support to this board, that is not necessarily written in metaphorical stone. The remuneration policy, as Member Martin highlighted, only speaks to community and provincial appointees to this board. It is proposed and was supported at the local council level that the elected officials to this board continue to observe their home municipalities' remuneration policies. So for our elected officials, you will be remunerated for your participation on this board through your council remuneration policy, and you'll continue to provide your expense reports to your home municipalities. The community and provincial appointees will provide expense reports to this board's treasurer, which is that of Georgian Bluffs. So following ratification of this bylaw today, should you wish to do so, those community and provincial appointees will track their expenses via the expense sheet for this board, which we will circulate following this meeting.
Go ahead, sir.
So just to give you some history of South Bruce Peninsula, and I can only speak to our finances, we costed things out, and it was going to be within dollars and cents of what we used to do on the old board, what it cost us, and all that whole procedure to go for. And it made sense that one municipality should take the lead and the run and the staffing, and we understand that we need to contribute to the staffing. Yes, I agree if we want to change that in the future, but we had to get started somewhere, and thanks to Georgia Bluffs for stepping up with the staff time and doing what you've done to get us to this point. So if we do want to change in the future, we can do whatever we want as a board, but it didn't seem to be any difference costing wise to us on the present, the way this is set up now. We didn't add anything to our budget to move forward.
I can throw a question at Madam Clerk. If any of the non-council members, being community members or the ordinary council members, want to see an amendment to anything in the per diems, for example, or the mileage, would it be by way of a motion at this time?
Yeah, it would be by way of an amendment to the motion that you have on the floor. We'd be happy to facilitate any proposed amendments or any feedback that the board has, absolutely. And just to build on Member Kirkland's comments, I had a comment now that I've opened my mouth, I can't remember it. So never mind, I'll hold it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And also on behalf of our municipality, we appreciate all the time and effort that Georgia Bluffs has put into getting this established. It was a painful process for you, I know. Just a question around two questions, Mr. Chair. One around the daily rate. Was that an average of the half-day and full-day per diems that the member municipalities are currently providing? Because there was discussion about wanting to make sure that our community and provincial appointees were receiving the same amount as what the elected officials were getting. So I just want confirmation that that was an average of what the member municipalities are currently providing.
And through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Mackey, an average is difficult because all of us do things differently. Not everyone has a per diem. The predominantly throughout Grey Bruce, most municipalities are purely honorarium based. So averaging out a per diem was difficult, but we did consult every individual remuneration policy in drafting the one that you see in front of you. We did remove an hourly per diem and just go strictly to a half-day per diem in recognizing that that may get us closer to an average rather than only recognizing an hourly rate.
I think you're very close. My second question, Mr. Chair, in the development of the budget, is that we have a number of municipalities of varying sizes. Is that going to be an assessment-based budget, or is it going to be divided by the number of municipalities? And I guess I would question if that's a fair process, if it is going to be just divided by the number of member municipalities.
And through you, Mr. Chair, the approach that we've taken thus far is that simply an equal division of costs. Your next meeting will be solely budget dedicated. We did need remuneration rates to inform the budget prior to the board endorsing it. So your next meeting will be solely budget. And should you wish to amend that allocation or that spread of costs, then that would be the opportunity to do so. All of your member municipalities have received costs for 2025 and 2024. And as Member Kirkland did highlight, the costs are not that much greater than have been seen in the previous style of police services boards. So that's
I look forward to the discussion.
I'm going to say, I suggest you schedule 7 hours.
yeah.
Lunch and dinner.
I will note just through you, Mr. Chair, that both Member Martin and Member Singh Soras have their hands.
Let's start with Member Martin.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. My question back to the clerk is around the full-time employee that Georgian Bluffs has hired for this. Did I understand that right, first of all?
Yeah, through you.
There is a dedicated employee at Georgian Bluffs for this purpose.
Through you, Mr. Chair. It is not a dedicated full-time employee, it is a part-time employee. While the employee is full-time, Georgian Bluffs as a municipality fulfills the other, what we call 0.5 allocation of the full-time position. So the board, as part of the budget, is covering 0.5 of the overall cost of an FTE. So it's part-time, to not make it complicated.
Okay, no, I understand, and I think I'm following. Who is that employee that they've assigned that to?
Through you, Mr. Chair. That would be our board administrator, Jody Ward. That's who has been facilitating all of the board's business, all of the training, all of everything thus far, and will continue to do so.
On that point, sorry, go ahead.
So I think somebody else will pick up where I'm going with this, but I want to move to a different question if I could, please,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
And it falls around insurance, and I know insurance was a big thing for these newly formed boards. Is Georgian Bluffs picking up the entirety? And maybe this will come at budget, so maybe I'll reserve my question for the budget when I see the budget numbers. I may have just answered it myself.
Let's move to the next.
Just to, on the same line, and I know we're getting a little bit away from where we are on the agenda, but it's my understanding, it's not just that employee that I'm going to be phoning to ask a question of Georgia Bluffs. I could be phoning the treasurer, I could be phoning yourself. Like, it's an allocation of time that you have put towards an employee, but us board members have the ability to ask questions of Georgia Bluff staff. And it's costing us a portion or 0.5 of a part-time or a full-time employee.
Okay. I think one of our other virtual members had a question. Was it Member Reynolds who had a question?
Seems so.
Oh, Member Source. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Just to the point of conferences, and on page 3 of 4, I was just talking about, I had the question in the inaugural meeting as well. So just for planning and all that, just wanted to make sure if I read that right, is that something that is open for board members to request to attend? And if so, what would be the best way to do that? Do we do that through our municipalities and things of that nature? And just a quick question about half day. I forget, but is the half day 3 hours or 4 hours?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The half day is 4 hours, full day is 8. But we're automatically remunerating based on a half day rate being 4 hours. In regards to the conference and seminars portion of the remuneration policy, it does only cover costs that we've allocated to the provincial and community appointees. So it is proposed that the elected official representatives on this board continue to observe the conference and seminar budget that's allocated through your home municipality. The budget has been built to observe that practice. Should the board wish to expand conference budgets to elected officials, you have the ability to do that. It will impact your budgets.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? Do I have a mover for the motion that the report be received? I'm sorry? It's bylaw?
Through you, Mr. Chair, you have a mover and a seconder already.
You do, okay.
Just need to call.
We will vote, yes, sorry, go
I
ahead.
just want to be clear, we're voting on the 7.4, correct? We're not into bylaws yet? Okay, thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed, if any? None, passed. We're up to number 8, Madam Clerk. That's the Grey Bruce OPP Board Bylaw 2005-01, being a bylaw to establish the rules governing the calling, place, and proceedings of the board. Any committees established by the board be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. The chair and board secretary sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Is there a mover? We have a mover. It's still say member Coburn, and the seconder was member Wood. Any discussion? Go ahead.
I have a few. I did just, by way of clarity, I guess at the top of this policy, we don't have a title. So just in keeping with the formatting of our other bylaws, and for ease of reading, I wonder if we could add a title to this one. But more importantly, jumping down to page 5 under number 3, we have said here that the inaugural meeting shall not be permitted to be done virtually. And I'm curious to know where that recommendation is coming from, because my understanding is that oaths can now be sworn virtually as of the rules changing during the COVID outbreak. I know that at least 2 of us around this table could have taken the oath virtually at the last meeting along with the others if that had been allowable. If I'm unclear about the regulation having changed, I'm happy to hear it, but I'm just wondering why we would limit that by saying it has to be in person. So because of that, some of us missed that meeting. And that's when some business of the board took place, including the election of the chair and the vice chair. So just curious to know where that recommendation is coming from.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Reflecting back, as Georgian Bluffs is providing administrative support to this board, we have mirrored a lot of our procedures in governing or proposing in governance of this board. Georgian Bluffs does not facilitate electronic inaugural meetings. That has been my experience thus far throughout Grey Bruce, only because inaugural meetings are so ceremonial. And we at Georgian Bluffs have not been in the practice of administering electronic-based oaths. You are correct, Member Coburn, that the regulations did change to permit that practice during COVID. We simply have not adopted a procedure or a practice of doing so. Our township inaugural meetings are held only in person. I know that that's a practice that's mirrored at the county as well. Should the board wish for us to undertake virtual inaugural meetings, we'd be happy to do so. There would just be some training and policy development work that would have to take place among the staff to take it.
Mr. Chair, is there not only just one inaugural meeting, or so it's sort of already done? The member's question has been answered. In other words, it could have been done, but it wasn't because it was awkward, difficult, and Georgian Bluffs, you folks decided that, and I'd had that same discussion with you, and basically really wasn't, it was sort of less presented as, well, that's just the way it has to be, as opposed to legally or otherwise. So, but what's done is done, right? Go ahead.
Through you, Chair. I think my point though is this is our procedure bylaw. So this goes beyond just this year. This goes to the next board and the following board and the following board. So I, for one, would like to see that changed. I think it's not in keeping with the times where we do a lot of things virtually now. I'm, with apologies, I'm not hearing any convincing argument other than that's the way it's always been done. I'll leave that to percolate for now, unless somebody else has that
I'm
comment.
in agreement with you too. Just go ahead.
Just on that, and when the procedural bylaw is just right here and the discussion's on, it's better to, would you like to see it in a motion? Or how do you want us to proceed to change? Like to me, it's immaterial. If we want to do it when we're starting with our procedural bylaw, to do it now, because it does get kind of difficult during the year to bring up the procedural bylaw. We might have one thing in July, we might have something else, and it makes a lot more work for staff. And if it's something we are okay with doing now, I would just as soon put a motion on the table now and vote on it to change to go virtually when we're dealing with the procedural bylaw? Or how would staff, like, I don't always like to add things in the future when we can deal with it right now.
Can it be dealt with now?
So while I'm holding the position as clerk, not actually a clerk, so I'm going to turn to the clerk and ask her how she would like to do so. Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I just wanted to add just another note of context to the virtual swearing in. So there's an act that gives authority to certain individuals who are appointed to be commissioners for taking oaths and affidavits. Typically, those are municipal clerks or those who the municipality applies to have appointed as commissioners for taking oaths. And that, of course, also extends to the legal profession, those who are licensed by the Law Society. At this time, the practice for several municipalities is that they haven't adopted virtual commissioning services. There are a number of reasons for that, given that we have not received training from the ministry on what that best practice looks like for doing those oaths virtually. In addition to that, that regulation, being the Commissioners for Taking Affidavits Act, does provide discretionary authority for that single commissioner to do the oath in a manner that they're comfortable with. And so the Commissioners for Taking Affidavits for Georgian Bluffs have not adopted the virtual commissioning process, and therefore all of our commissioning services are done in person. So that is just the practice at this time. It's mostly for our comfort as, professionals who have not received that training and that best practice information coming from and resulting from that regulatory change. And so we have remained doing those services solely in person, which is the reason that this inaugural meeting was held in person for the purposes of facilitating those commissioning services.
So in effect, the remedy is really to start with Georgian Bluffs and get an amendment at that level.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just because that authority is actually, it's given to certain individuals under that act and not through a council, then delegated to staff. So commissioners are actually appointed via that act, and so those commissioners have that discretionary authority. And so at this point in time, we have taken that approach because that's the approach that we have received the training on and are comfortable with administering.
Right.
Carly, can you describe for us how extensive the training would be to be able to be up to speed with best practices in virtual swearing oaths? I may be wrong. I can't imagine that taking, hours and hours and hours of training to be able to do, but please correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you. Through you, Board Chair. So there isn't a formal training that exists at this time, and so I'm not certain what opportunities there are that exist. This is something that we have explored. So through the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks and Treasurers of Ontario, this is a topic that has come up, and certainly something that I think larger centers are doing, but at this point in time, smaller municipalities, at least those surrounding me. And when this question came forward, we did some research with our surrounding municipalities and those municipalities that are participating in this board, who all confirmed that their process was in-person commissioning only. So at this point in time, there are solicitors who will exercise that virtual authority. And so it's not something that is impossible for us to do, but it is something that would require some training and some policy work that is essentially supporting that discretionary authority that those commissioners have. So it wouldn't be a policy of council necessarily, but an internal policy to deal with the procedure for commissioning.
Well, let me ask you a question. Could it have been possible, or could it be possible going forward, that if you wanted somebody who was qualified to issue that oath, to pay the person their per diem, ring them in for that sole purpose. I'm sure a lawyer is, their own clerks are commissioners of oaths and they can do it. And if that's the case, well, take it out of your budget and pay them. It's as simple as that, and then it accommodates everybody.
That's what I was going to suggest, moving forward, if we were removing the in-person component of the inaugural meeting. And so it is something that the board could facilitate and pay for in the future if we required those virtual commissioning services.
I can understand the ceremonial purpose of doing it, but in certain cases, you may have, well, using an example, we couldn't hold meetings to vote specifically when we got the problem. We had to go have 9 people. Well, there were reasons for it. We won't go into it. Point is, if somebody was willing to come and say, well, I've got a license, or I'm commissioner of oaths, it's going to cost you a per diem for it, then it wouldn't have slowed down the appointment of Commander Barfoot, for example. Could have been done earlier. Go ahead.
The other part of this that I had raised a question about was, is it possible for someone who's been duly appointed, completed all the training, to have had the oath administered prior to the inaugural meeting? And I was told, no, you can't do that. It's forbidden or whatever. Now, perhaps we could get some clarification there as well, because if someone who couldn't make the meeting that was going to be away could have come in a week before and had the oath administered, then they would have been, but no, I was told that can't be done. You must physically attend the inaugural meeting to be able to, and so now we're talking about, it doesn't have to be done virtually.
Go ahead, Madam Clerk, because I agree with him. I asked the same question. It's a 5-minute drive. I'll be there.
So if I may, the difficulty with the inaugural was simply the space in which it was held, because we did not have the ability to host virtual participation in that space. While we were adopting an in-person only inaugural ceremony, the technical limitations at Grey Roots is what stopped us. Now, with that being said, we are in a space now that we can host virtual or hybrid meetings. So simply, if the board would like to have virtual inaugural meetings, we can take the direction, do the training, and amend that portion of your procedure bylaw.
Go ahead.
I would love to see that. Just simply put, I would like to see procedures in place that make participation more accessible. And I think that's a barrier that's unnecessary, and it seems to me it would be a pretty minor amendment to the motion. So I would make that motion.
Mr. Chair, with all due respect, I don't believe the clerk, though, addressed the issue of the swearing in advance. You talked about change to virtual, but is that possible, or why was it not possible?
Yeah.
You can be sworn in prior to, but you can't participate in the inaugural. See, so it doesn't matter if you're sworn in, you couldn't participate in the inaugural virtually anyway, because we could not facilitate your virtual participation.
Go ahead.
So, and along with my member over here, Colburn is saying, if we just give the direction to staff that it would take a vote of the board to see if they're all in favor of when we can, or however we can, do the virtual swearing in. So I think it just leave it at that, when we can, when our clerk has the ability, or whether we bring somebody in. Does the board want to vote on that, or do you need to see a motion on the table with direction, or the verbal direction of what we're saying, and a vote on is good enough for you?
So I would suggest, and actual Madam Clerk, jump in at any point, we simply amend the motion that's currently on the floor to reflect the amendment within the bylaw, which is that inaugural meetings be held virtually.
When possible. And I keep looking at you because I can't see her. So, sorry that I'm directing my questions to there.
Call me out if I say anything that's.
You want to address that, Carl?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I agree. That was well said. But yes, I think that if the desire is for the inaugural meeting to be facilitated virtually as well, that commissioning piece is only a small part. And you know, if I as a clerk am not comfortable with exercising my discretionary authority
to facilitate a commissioning virtually, there's no reason why we couldn't hire somebody to provide that service to the board within that meeting, provided all of the other logistics with technology also pan out. So just to summarize, it wasn't necessarily the commissioning isolated alone, but also the venue and the size of the board. And so while we're still figuring out those logistics, we thought it would be easiest to facilitate that meeting in person. And also it's ceremonial, and it's a little bit more than that. You know, it's giving you the opportunity to have a face-to-face meet and greet with your fellow board members as well, which we thought as a new board would be very beneficial. So just to conclude my comments there.
So do we need a written motion on the table, or are you okay with verbal and a vote?
So we will track the amendments throughout this discussion and then move the amendments prior to voting on the main motion. Are we happy with that, Craig? Yeah, okay.
We have, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Do you want me to speak to the current topic of conversation, or should it be actually formally on the floor before I do?
So the motion is formally on the floor.
Motion is formally on the floor now.
Well, now, but we're talking about bits and pieces of it. So I like meeting in person. I always have. I like the ceremony of an inaugural meeting. You know, at the county, we have the ceremony and usually a few treats afterwards. And, you know, you're swearing in the warden, or in this case with lower tiers, you're swearing in of all the council members, the mayor and deputy mayor, and I like that process. And for one meeting, I'm opposed to any additional costs being incurred by the board to bring in someone that has the authority to be a commissioner. If our staff can't do it, I think that would be a waste of money. And your comment, Mr. Chair, about, you know, we just added to the budget. Well, we're the member municipalities whose budgets would be impacted, so we just have to be careful.
Okay, I take you.
Member Martin has her hand.
Member Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to say I'm agreeing with Member Mackey on that one, and my comments are going to be very reflective of that. I think the inauguration meeting is a ceremonial meeting, and the date was chosen, if you will remember, after much discussion. It took a long time to get to an agreement on a date, and if an individual member cannot make that meeting in person, that's their loss. I mean, I'm sorry, I hate to sound so blunt about it, but I'm not in favor of changing the procedural bylaw to incur additional costs just to facilitate, you know, having the inauguration and being sworn in to be done virtually. I think that's a complete waste of resources. And I would love to be there in person today, but I had knee surgery, so I can't be. And I think that it should be in person is all I'm getting to. And if there is a motion to change it, I would like to request that it be a recorded motion or recorded vote, because I will be voting not in favor of it.
So if the motion was along the line that it could happen, but not at an additional cost, which would mean if our current staff weren't able to perform it, then it wouldn't happen. So we wouldn't be bringing something in, but it could happen. Because she just had knee surgery, but she still, you know, couldn't be here in person today, but would that have prevented her from being sworn in if she couldn't have been at the inaugural meeting? So I'm okay with it being virtually, but I do agree that the members at no additional cost to bring somebody in to do it. If our staff can't do it, then we shouldn't be doing it.
Go ahead, sir.
New player at the table. Just listen to all the conversations. Would everybody agree that if the majority can be in person for the ceremonial part, but you have the option of those that can't make it, whether it's surgery or whatever, can get sworn in virtual? Is that sort of where we want to go?
at no additional cost.
Additional costs. So you still have the service, because you missed out on a whole lot of treats there, Mr. Mackey, I'm sorry. There's more food you could take home in the truck, but anyway. But the point is if we're all agreeing that it's a ceremonial thing, that we're a person, but there's the option. I think that's where we're going to go. But no extra cost. Yes.
Somebody want to word the motion?
Yes.
I could word a motion.
That's fine.
It could just be, that the inaugural meeting of the board shall be conducted in accordance with the act and shall include a declaration of oath of office of all members appointed to the board and the appointment of the vice chair. Virtual participation shall be permitted, for less than a quorum of participating members where staff resources will permit. Something along those lines? Is that what we're trying to get at?
That's where I'm coming from, is as long as our staff can perform it, either virtually or in person, then it can be allowed.
And it may be, Mr. Chair, that I am not a proponent of adjusting and amending wording on the fly, simply because I'm not sure that it adequately reflects the board's direction. So it may be that we simply defer this item, we take it back, work on the writing, and bring it back at your next
I
meeting.
would agree with that because
I don't
somebody
like to
said,
do it on the fly.
legal counsel or somebody with more knowledge may be able to look at it and say, no, there's a flaw in it. So my suggestion would be the same, to defer that to the next meeting.
Motion to defer the motion. Is that what you want?
It's a motion to defer the motion.
Well, if I may, we'll defer the entirety of the procedure bylaw. So if there's any other discussion at this time, we'll take any other feedback of the board and work that into any adjustments.
Okay.
I do. So under 13, notice of motion, that's page 12. 13C. I just wonder if you could clarify this one for me. It sounds like you're asking for notice or notice of motion, which feels a bit redundant to me. So a notice of motion shall be submitted to the board administrator in advance of the meeting. The item is to be considered for inclusion on the agenda. So if I were to be bringing forward a notice of motion, you wish to be notified of that before I bring that under notice of motion? Maybe that's confusing to me.
I believe it's simply, through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that should simply read a matter that is a board inquiry. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So that section speaks to kind of the mechanics of a notice of motion. So you would provide that notice at the meeting, at the current meeting, for example, to be considered at next month's meeting. So what that is intended to say, and it may need to be clarified, is that your notice of motion that you have drafted for inclusion on the agenda, you would, on the next agenda, you would provide to us in advance of that next meeting. So the motion that you have drafted, you've provided verbal notice at the current meeting, but in advance of next meeting, you'll need to provide us with the notice of motion that you've drafted so that we can include it on the agenda.
Not the notice of motion, but you're asking for the actual motion.
The actual motion, yes.
So I think that just needs to be clarified in this paragraph. Thank you.
Where are we going with this?
Just facilitate discussions, any general feedback around the procedure bylaw. I think we've,
Defer it to the next meeting.
we do have to have a formal vote to that effect.
So I'm sorry, I have another question. This is under 18, page 15, 18B. Speaks to a member may call for a recorded vote prior to or immediately after the taking of the vote. So this is news to me. So after a vote occurs, an informal vote, you can then request a recorded vote after the fact?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
Obviously, it hasn't happened, George.
It might now that we know.
Hang on, we've got more coming.
No, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead. Oh, okay, from Member Soares?
Thank you. Just through you, Chair, to the clerk, and just to the recent point regarding the notice of motion. I'm not sure if this is the same, but I just remember I had a note for that with the new board inquiry section. I just wanted to confirm if we will have a formal process to submit inquiries ahead of the meetings, and will the responses be documented for public transparency? Is it the same as notice of motion, or?
Go ahead, Carmen.
Mr. Chair, through you to Member Singh Soares. So the board inquiries, so those, we encourage you to provide those in advance of if there's a specific question that you would like addressed at the meeting. So you can always feel free to provide those to staff in advance of the meeting, and we will ensure that they are answered within the meeting, not directly to you via email, but within the meeting. And then they will then form part of the public record contained within the meeting minutes at that specific meeting where the board inquiry has been asked.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
What's on the table? That the policy manual,
That's the procedure bylaw.
procedure bylaw be deferred until the next meeting. Is that correct? Go ahead.
That's correct. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Question under 15B. All regular meetings shall not exceed 3 hours unless a motion to extend is approved by unanimous consent of the board. I'm just wondering why we would need unanimous consent of the board to extend the meeting up to 4 hours when per diem is 4 hours.
It's on your calendar from 10 to 1.
We're getting paid for 4 hours, so why would we have to extend, keep going beyond 3?
It should be in your calendar 10 to 2 then.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would be happy to amend that in the amended version of the procedure bylaw when it is brought back subsequent to its deferral, that it's a 4 hours as opposed to 3 hours.
Mr. Chair, there are times that most of our procedural bylaws allow us to go to a certain time, but with the majority of council, you can extend, try to finish off your business if you've only got, in the view of the chair, 15 or 20 minutes. So I'm just not sure the unanimous part, why we would have to have every single member agree if the majority agree.
Just by quorum.
Yeah. Also happy to make that change.
Just on that, you put it in your calendar from 10 to 2, it pretty well buggers up a day. If it's in your calendar from 10 to 2 to be at another meeting.
I wasn't talking about what time we started the meeting. I was talking about just.
But I'm just saying currently the way it is, from schedule 10 to 1, you know what I mean? If it is 10 to 2, you really limits your opportunity to go other business in the day. It's pretty well a whole day buggered up. Maybe I'm using the wrong words, but
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Member McQueen, are you recommending a different start time for meetings? Is that what this discussion is?
I don't know. I'm sure once we get going on this board, we'll probably shorten the time because we're going through a lot of procedural stuff. We're getting into a lot of, I think once we get through that, we're probably going to, in 2 hours, we should get a lot of this done, I would think, probably, depending on what's on it. Right now, we're just getting started, right? So I don't know.
Is there a motion? Motion to defer the motion.
Yes, there is a motion to defer.
All in favor?
Just point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Our procedure bylaw can be amended at any time.
Correct. Yeah.
Right, so if we come back and our meeting's only 2 hours, we can. Right. Thank you.
Any opposed to that motion? No hands. Passed. What are we up to, Madam Clerk? Closed session?
You're on item 8.2.
Do we need a break at this point? Okay, how about we take how long is your recess?
Generally 5 minutes.
Let's take a 5-minute recess.
I'm gonna have to leave at 12:30, but that's fine.
Brittany or Jody, I'm not sure if either of you can hear me still. Can you just answer?
So to get up to 5 instead of 6.
Oh, Member Martin, yes, we can hear you.
I didn't get the stuff for the closed, and I'm just wondering if you could send it by email to me.
We did not circulate materials for closed as there is no materials. We will simply be projecting the agenda on the screen. You'll be able.
Fair enough. Thank you very much for that clarification.
Cheap in here, I guess this keeps it cheap.
Ready for it?
Okay. It's up to Val.
Now we're at item 8.2. That is the policy manual bylaw.
Okay. Recommendation to approve the bylaw that the Gray Bruce OPP Board Bylaw 2025-02, being a bylaw to adopt policies and procedures to govern the Gray Bruce OPP Detachment Board, be a first, second, and third time and finally passed, signed by the chair and board secretary, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Is there a mover for the motion? Vice Chair has moved the motion. A seconder for the motion. Member Coburn has seconded that motion. Is there any discussion? Lots of discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. Given the conversations we've had about permitting virtual participation in inaugural meetings, I would recommend that the electronic participation policy be pulled for ratification today, so I can make the necessary amendments to that policy to marry those within the procedure bylaw.
Okay. Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Sounds good. Do we have a mover for the motion? We did already.
You did. Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
And this is understanding the structure, how things are laid out. There's some language in there where it says the board shall. Will there be systems and processes in place? I'm not sure who gets the question. Through the staff to track some of the things that the board shall, or is that being left to the board to ensure that we?
Nothing is left to the board.
Thank you.
We are your support team. But as far as, like I'm reflecting on, and through you, Mr. Chair, my apologies. Just reflecting on some of the wording that's included in the code of conduct and the associated procedure with that process. You'll note that through the ratification or proclamation of the Community Safety and Policing Act, a new governing or overseeing body, being the Inspectorate General of Policing, was created. And that is essentially, for the elected officials in the room, what equals the Integrity Commissioner on the council side of the table. So that is essentially just an oversight body to ensure that the board is operating within its code of conduct, not beyond its bounds.
So where it says the board shall once a year, that will all we can expect that to come here as part of your regular procedures. Thanks.
Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair, to Brittany. Just going back to the electronic piece within this manual, and that would be on page 3 of that policy number 3, 2.2. I'm confused about the first sentence that says we should notify you of our intentions as to whether we attend in person or electronically within 48 hours of the commencement of the meeting. So you want us to let you know within 2 days, like 2 days right up to the start of the meeting, how we intend to participate, but then it goes on to say we should provide at least 5 days notice to the board. Can you just help me understand that?
Yes, and through you, Mr. Chair. The 48 hours is what I'll call the bare minimum notice. In any ideal scenario, you would know at least 5 days in advance or at the time of publication of the agenda what your preferred participation style within that meeting is, simply to accommodate setup of the meeting, to ensure we have enough chairs, to ensure everybody that's participating virtually has the link, etc. So the 48 hours is simply just, if things come up and something changes, if you are able to provide us with at least 48 hours notice, that's appreciated.
So if I may, I think it should probably say at a minimum of 48 hours. You're saying within 48 hours of the start of the meeting. So to me, that says between 2 days prior to the commencement of the meeting and when the meeting starts. You want it before that period, right?
Ideally.
Yeah. Ideally. Okay. I think it's just a wording issue. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if you woke up not feeling well, you had a broken foot, or the roads are closed, is there an exception to that?
Yes, and the intention, and again, through you, Mr. Chair, sorry, I keep forgetting that caveat. The intent of this section is Simply, if you are able to tell us how you wish to participate, that is very much appreciated. So please, yes, if you could simply just notify us of how you intend to participate, 10 minutes before will do.
It's a request to be courteous.
Yeah, if you simply just inform us of what your preference is.
And if I can digress just a little bit, it's come to my attention and I'm listening that when we're addressing Commander Barfoot, we're using different terminology such as inspector, et cetera. So I'm asking everybody in addressing the commander now that she is properly, would that be fair to say commander?
Yes, it's inspector or detachment commander, either or.
Inspector, Will,
That's my rank, yes.
That's your preference?
Either of those is fine. Inspector is my rank, detachment commander is my role, so either is fine.
We're in different
Aren't you
houses.
surprised?
This guy all the time.
Okay, where were we? Did we have a vote on the policy?
You did not have the vote, but you do have a mover and second.
We do. All in favor of the motion? Opposed, if any, we've got no opposition. Carries. We move into the in-camera section. Closed session. Recommendation is that the Grey Bruce OPP Detachment Board move into closed session at 12:35 p.m. a.m. No, p.m. Somebody had a.m. here. In the Township of Georgian Bluffs Council Chambers, Microsoft Teams with the Deputy CAO, Director of Corporate Services, Manager of Legislative Services, Clerk, Board Administrator, and Grey Bruce OPP Detachment Commander. There you go, we got it right. Or their designate remaining in the room to discuss information that Section 8 of the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act would authorize a refusal to disclose if it were contained in a record. Open meeting exemption K of Section 44 sub 2 of the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019, call response times. Is there a mover for this motion?
I'll move.
The move?
Member McQueen?
Councilor Mayor McQueen. Sorry, I'm going to get that right. Member
McQueen.
Is the mover and a seconder?
Member Mackey?
Seconds a motion. Is there any discussion on this motion? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question through you to the clerk. Not being at the inaugural meeting and not knowing all of my other colleagues that well, I'm just wondering if the provincial and Ontario appointees are well versed on the meaning of closed session and have been trained on what the requirements of being in closed session are.
Oh,
Did you want to do it?
thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. We plan to do a brief overview when we move into closed session, just on the procedure that would ordinarily take place. And then in the future, probably at the next meeting, we'll have a formal closed session policy adopted, and the board will receive orientation at that time.
But it is being recorded now.
Through you, Mr. Chair, today's closed session will not be recorded.
Okay.
It may be recorded in the future if that is the board's desire, and that would be dealt with through that specific policy as well.
Go ahead. Anybody else? And there's no discussion further. We'll call the vote. All in favor? All hands went up. All opposed? No opposition? Passed. Okay, we can
Georgian Bluff has a lot of activities to do. It's really nature driven, and it's like the community is very nice, very friendly. And a lot of the locals come here every single day and they think of it as their therapy.
We're the Farouk family. We started farm on the lake, and the community, everybody around it, the support structure, the township has actually made us to who we are today. And now that we have this set up, this whole operation is well received by the community. People drive down from far, far away to do camping, glamping with us.
A lot of people come from far away to see the goats, and they're really amazed. Sometimes we feed the babies in front of them.
When we think about Georgian Bluffs, it's really the Reiki forest bathing that comes to my mind. I'm a Reiki master teacher, and we were looking to bring our people for a retreat, and this property just popped up, and we realized that behind it's a beautiful forest. Every time we are driving up, I feel so relaxed. The air is amazing.
If you're an outdoor enthusiast, there's never-ending things to do. There's the hiking all over through the escarpment. There's the bay, the water, if you're into water sports or sailing. And of course, pickleball is growing fast, and it's all over the place right now. So there's lots to do.
What we enjoy the most about Georgian Bluff is having access to the beautiful nature around us, the cultural impact from the First Nations to the local artists.
The trails and so many great things to do, and lots of business opportunity here, and tourism as well to support our business.
First off, what I love about the area is the scenery. It's absolutely beautiful. Like, it's right in the name of the municipality, the Bluffs. Another thing too that I noticed from living through here is all the small communities throughout Georgian Bluffs. They're very unique, and they might be very small, but we're very big with heart. Everybody looks out for each other, takes care of each other, and just the way locals support locals. So the ability to have a local business and prosper is very apparent here in Georgian Bluffs.
People are more genuine here. People are more sincere. They're kind. They know the word please and thank you. It's the way life used to be. It's more simpler. You feel like you're part of something.
The township of Georgian Bluffs as a municipality is proud to serve its residents, whether it be looking after infrastructure, looking after our roads, grading our gravel roads, looking after our parks, our trails, our community centres, our ice arena, or providing the services that residents rely on every single day when they come to our township offices. I'm proud to lead a team which is here serving the residents of Georgian Bluffs every single day.
What we'd like to see Georgian Bluffs going forward is really, more people coming to experience this beautiful energy, this relaxed energy, because over here in Georgian Bluffs, I can hear the wind, I can hear the trees talking. It's just amazing, really relaxing.
Welcoming more people, yet with the same foundation and principles of community, of respect, and of morals.
It would be great for Georgian Bluffs to continue to support, nature and the beauty that we have here, and to keep our area clean and beautiful.
I hope to see more local businesses, more sustainable living, and more families just moving up here and living and prospering off their land and their property.
For me and my family, Georgian Bluffs means being close to nature. Having the escarpment to hike and the water of Georgian Bay at our doorstep is something that draws us to being part of this community. The family-friendly neighbourhoods, the fact I can connect with my neighbours and see them on the street and say hello, and I know the people I'm seeing each day, is something which for me is something I treasure and my family treasures about being in Georgian Bluffs.
We are Dirk and Alma DeVries, and we are coming to you from Dual Acres. This is a beautiful property in Georgian Bluffs that we own, and we run horse-drawn sleigh and carriage rides from.
So today we're going to have Dan and Juliet. Dan's a 12-year-old gelding and Juliet's a 12-year-old mare. Come on, Dan. When people come here, we invite them to come back to our shack, and they will go in there and they can get ready to go, get dressed, whatever they need to do, and stay warm till the ride event starts. And then we bring the horses out of this sleigh shed here, and they get on, and we take them roughly for a 40-minute ride, all through hardwood and softwood bush. So the whole experience is in woods. We return here, we drop them off here. They can go in and there's a big wood stove in there. They warm up, and if they so desire, they can also enjoy a cup of hot chocolate. We build all our own sleighs, and there's a reason for that. Is sleighs in Ontario came with a width, a stance with a runner width of 3 feet, and that was designed to work in the bush and whatnot. But a 3-foot stance is very tippy when you get people. People are like hauling water. There's always a second motion, and that second motion is the motion that'll tip the sleighs. So I rebuild all the sleighs to a 4-foot wide stance, and that's very stable. There's no, you cannot tip them. Our sleighs are also adaptable to handle wheelchairs, which we discovered early this. You know, there was that need there that people with disabilities need that we needed to provide.
We've done lots of charity work. We did Santa sleigh ride here on the farm. That actually helped really for people to be aware that we were here. But we always have a passion, especially for children with special needs. That was one way that we were able to give back to the community. Every year we host a ride here for the GRACE program, which is the Georgian Riding Association for Challenged Equestrians.
Horses and dog sleds are exactly the same. If you want the horse or the dogs to go right, you say gee. If you want them to go left, you say haw. I've done thousands of rides and I never get tired of it because it's the horses that are the enjoyment. And the people are, you know, we have people from all over, and there's so many different stories and so many good people out there that you meet.
I hope that when people come to our farm here and enjoy a sleigh or wagon ride through the bush, that they enjoy the bush, the beauty of nature here, and just go away feeling relaxed and rejuvenated.
The Welcome Package is a tool that was developed by GB Lip's subcommittee community. It was a tool that was supposed to be used for municipalities to share information with new residents, specifically immigrants coming to their communities, in a consistent way across Grey and Bruce counties. And what's great about it is the package was actually translated into multiple different languages.
As my own personal lived experience as an immigrant, not everything was accessible to me with the click of my hand. But the welcoming package, if you look up the municipality website, all the information that you need about the schools, about the local hospitals, about the local grocery stores, about the settlement service provider in your area. So I think it is a one-stop shop for all your settlement needs.
Georgian Bluff has a lot of activities to do. It's really nature driven, and it's like the community is very nice, very friendly.
We started farm on the lake, and the community, everybody around it, the support structure, the township has actually made us to who we are today.
Every time we are driving up, I feel so relaxed. The air is amazing. I can hear the wind, I can hear the trees talking. It's just amazing, really relaxing.
If you're an outdoor enthusiast, there's never-ending things to do. There's the hiking all over through the escarpment. There's the bay, the water. If you're into water sports or sailing, of course, pickleball is growing fast and it's all over the place right now. So there's lots to do.
What we enjoy the most about Georgian Bluff is having access to the beautiful nature around us, the cultural impact from the First Nations to the local artists.
First off, what I love about the area is the scenery. It's absolutely beautiful. Like, it's right in the name of the municipality, the Bluffs. Everybody looks out for each other, takes care of each other, and just the way locals support locals. So the ability to have a local business and prosper is very apparent here in Georgian Bluffs.
People are more genuine here. People are more sincere. They're kind. They know the word please and thank you. It's the way life used to be. It's more simpler. You feel like you're part of something.
It would be great for Georgian Bluffs to continue to support, nature and the beauty that we have here, and to keep our area clean and beautiful.
For me and my family, Georgian Bluffs means being close to nature. Having the escarpment to hike and the water of Georgian Bay at our doorstep is something that draws us to being part of this community. The family-friendly neighbourhoods, the fact I can connect with my neighbours and see them on the street and say hello, and I know the people I'm seeing each day, is something which for me is something I treasure and my family treasures about being in Georgian Bluffs.
Georgian Bluff has a lot of activity.
The meeting being adjourned at 1:06.
If I may?
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair. There's just a matter of the next board meeting date.
The next board meeting is May 27th.
At
10 o'clock still? Can we go to 9?
We had a conversation about that earlier, just, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Just whether the board would be interested in meeting at 9 in this facility. Because two advantages. One, they're already comfortable with the tech here and they don't have to get in here, do whatever Grey Highlands business they have to do. And then, Georgian Bluffs business, sorry, unless you want to do Grey Highlands business as well.
We can have our council meetings.
And then head over to there. So we were just talking about whether or not, whether the board would be amenable to having 9 o'clock meetings here for ease for you, as well as it only eats up hopefully a part of the day instead of the middle of the day.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the staff team is able to accommodate whatever time and location works.
Is able to accommodate?
Yeah, we're happy to accommodate whatever the board's preferences.
Any discussion or anybody objecting to 9 o'clock? Good idea?
Might be an issue in the wintertime.
Could be.
I got an hour drive.
And we still got
But
two.
you still have the virtual.
We've still got 2 people on the screen. We've got Member Martin and Member Soares. You good with 9 o'clock for the next meeting?
Yep. Thank
Good.
you.
Yes.
So 9 o'clock it shall be on May 27th in this facility, correct? Okay, that's on the record. The meeting therefore, motion that the meeting adjourn at this time right now, 1:07. Is there a mover? Seconder. We have a seconder being Member Coburn, and we have a mover from Northern Bruce Peninsula. How's that? Hometown.
Yes.
Okay. No discussion? None. Vote on it? Meeting closed? It is.
You sent the meeting request? Yeah. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. 2 readings, that's going to, even 10 to 12.